This is day number 3, I think, of talking about Nintendo. And the more I watch all of the things that are unfolding, the more confused I am. So I want to talk about Metroid. I want to talk about a couple other games. I want to talk about the pricing that supposedly Nintendo did an interview for, which I can't find. Maybe it does exist. Maybe maybe they took it down. I don't know. Maybe some other things. So I'm going to say this first. It's like upper management in Nintendo was all fired. Nobody knows about it. And the lower level minions are just scrambling to put something together. It feels like that has happened. I don't think that's what's happened, but it's Nintendo, so they wouldn't tell you anyways if it had happened. I don't understand why they did that direct on the 27th. I don't understand the pricing things. I don't understand why a game like Metroid 4 Prime, which they've been teasing for like a decade now, is getting the raw treatment, just thrown, like, oh, by the way, this is coming out. I don't understand why every game other than Mario Kart that's coming out on this system is a remake. It's been known that the system is coming out. Nintendo knew that the system was coming out. And the only new game that they could come up with was Mario Kart World. Even if that's the only thing they had capacity to do. The only thing they had capacity to do, because we're still making Switch games. There are a third party. Of course, they keep laying everybody off. So maybe it's just a combination of these huge studios laying everybody off, and I don't know. It reeks of Wii U. It sells like Wii U all over again. If Switch wasn't so successful and hadn't brought so many new people into the platform, I don't think this launch would go well at all. And if it weren't for bots and everything buying these games and people, stocking these things up like crazy and then reselling them for massive prices, which I don't think is going to work. There was huge hype around PS5. There's the hype has fizzled because of lack of good management at Nintendo so hard with this pricing issues. I mean, I'll talk about pricing in a little while. I wanted to talk Metroid. What are you doing to your own franchise, Metroid? It's not even coming out when the system comes out. You would think that they would have this thing out launch day. Maybe they will. They just haven't announced it yet. They just said coming out 2025. I'm here editing this video, and one of the things that I just thought to myself is maybe they haven't announced the date of Metroid 4 Prime coming out yet because they want to see how bad the backlash was for pricing and how much are they going to charge for Metroid 4 Prime, because that thing has been sitting in the works for a decade? Can you imagine how much they actually want to charge for that thing? It's just a thought. It might not be any part of reality, but that might be why they're doing it, because why wouldn't you want that game at launch? That makes no sense. The game is clearly ready because they're playing it at the Treehouse. The game is ready. Maybe it's that, maybe it's that, or they're going to blame tariffs. I don't know, but that it is a thought. I can't understand. Maybe this direct that came out on the 27th that was pointing out Switch games points to the fact that they've made like 3 Switch 2 and, good luck getting one, and they don't really care if the bots get them. They just want to sell their pre-orders. That's all they care about. They don't care. It could all go to one person. They wouldn't care. That's a good job to them because they got all their pre-orders sold, and it all just goes to one person, and that person sells it for $1,000. It doesn't matter to them. They don't care. And of all games to remake, if you're Square Enix, why Bravely Default? Granted, it's a good game. People loved it. I like it. Chrono Trigger is like everybody's favorite game. That is, everybody knows Square Enix is one of their fan favorite games of all time. They make Bravely Default. Why? Make Bravely Default 3. How about that? Game that nobody's played before. Every single launch game other than Mario Kart, which, face it, you're not going to play for that long. No, I mean, how many hours do people actually put into that game? If you look at the life cycle of the game, it's a lot of hours. But if you look at the short term, it's not a lot. Most people play it for like half an hour and then put it down, and then maybe a couple days later, So they're banking on you rebuying games that you've already played and beaten on a system that might not even play it as good as PC Master Race, which I have right behind me, or might not play it as good as other consoles. I don't know. We don't. We got some specs from this thing. We didn't get a lot. We know that it has a fan in the dock. This is like watching a live that I put together. Everybody watches my videos, whether it's on this channel or some of my other channels, and it's like, this guy needs, somebody to create a script for him. Like, they needed a script that was better than this. And then they're throwing their Treehouse Live people under the bus. Yeah, I mean, if you watch, this is the most lackluster Treehouse Live I've ever seen. They look dead. They're just like, they just like their eyes, they get like the 1,000-yard stare going on. Nobody's really got a smile on. It's just like, what have you done since 2017? This is what, 8 years to build a system? I mean, how it's like it's very confusing. It is very confusing. And how long they talked about the chat and how they keep bringing it up in the Treehouse Live. It's been around since like the PlayStation 3, if not the PlayStation 2. It's not a new feature. They act like it's a new feature. And if you look at the footage that they have for it, it's choppy. It looks like it drops down to like 5 frames and those little cube things or the little square things underneath the game. What Nintendo is thinking, I don't know. I don't even think they know what they're thinking. So they're throwing low management out into the wolves. And low management, what did they do? They did an interview, supposedly. I can't find it. If you know where it is, link it, put it in a comment section that says that the pricing issue is because of retailers. Retailers are to blame for this whole thing. How Nintendo now has created another fire. So now they're going to have to put out the fire with retailers that they just created, who sell your product, by the way. If you live in New York, you can go over to Nintendo's actual store and buy it, or San Francisco. Other than that, you're going to rely on a retailer that you just threw under the bus. People don't make any, or these retailers make hardly any money on these games whatsoever. These retailers would love to charge $100, $120 for every game. They would love it. So you're throwing them under the bus and say that instead of trying to tell us why on some sites, Bravely Default's listed as $39.99. Street Fighter 6 is listed as $59.99. Donkey Kong $69.99, right? And Mario Kart World at $79.99. Now, if this does work, that is going to get ugly, because there's other like Sony and Microsoft who make or who put way more money into their games than Nintendo does. They're going to start charging how much for these games? If they see that this works, they are going to price themselves out of their own market. So they're throwing the retailers under the bus. Well, retailers set the prices. No, you create the MSRP, and then they just list it as that. They're hoping you buy accessories and all that, because when I worked in the camera industry, like a camera bag, we would buy it for $2.50 and we'd sell it for $250. How much markup is that? That's where money is made in almost any electronic industry, is accessories. That's why they make so many accessories. And it's why I don't buy any of them, because I know how pathetically cheap they were. And I don't know. This whole thing has been absolutely ridiculous. They turned a switch to Direct that had a lot of people hyped. I don't know why, because they have one game at launch. One, game at launch. I know I've mentioned this before, but think about like Nintendo Power back in the day when Super Nintendo was coming out, and reading all of these games that were coming out at launch, and now the only turd that it could squeeze out is Mario Kart World. It looks great. How long are you going to play a game like that? Seriously. I already wasn't really going to buy the Switch 2 because I barely even can get to the Switch 1. And now it's just like, what would you buy it for? A bunch of GameCube games that you've already played? A bunch of other third-party games that you've already played? A remake of Bravely Default? I already own the one on the 3DS. Blood Dusk or whatever that game is by From Software. I know a lot of people are excited about that, so they have that, but that's listed as next year. It's only April of this year. I'm sure at some point this will have a great catalog of games, but right now, what in the hell is going on? It's just crazy to me. Anyway, I could go on and on about this, but I thought this was going to be great, but I actually did have concern when they put that direct out on the 27th of March. I'm like, why are they doing this? And then the lackluster Metroid 4, like, oh, by the way, this is coming out. I mean, they couldn't have picked three worse people to have the Nintendo Direct. I'm sure they could have picked worse, but they could certainly have picked better people to do the announcing of the Switch 2 stuff. I mean, those guys are great at what they do. They are not publicity people at all. The guy's suit looked like it was 14 times the size it was supposed to be. Anyway, complain fest. Sorry. Anyway, I'm just gonna leave it here, just because this is about the worst launch I think I've ever seen for any system. PS5 really had a terrible launch, but that was mainly because, computer components were supposedly hard to find. You never know if this is artificially made or actual happening. Oh, and another thing, the tariffs. They're probably trying to blame tariffs. Tariffs have existed since the beginning of time. And now we're trying to blame tariffs. Like just throw Trump under the bus now with tariffs. Let's ignore the fact that all other countries charge like 2, 3, 4, 500% tariffs on us. Let's ignore that fact. Let's ignore the fact that Andrew Jackson paid off all of our national debt with tariffs, and let's ignore the fact that the taxes are deemed illegal based on the Constitution, and we didn't even have income taxes until 1913. Let's ignore all of that. Let's ignore the fact that our taxes actually don't go to pay for anything other than these side projects that the government has. Let's ignore all that. Tariffs are bad. Anyway, yeah. Talk to you in the next one. Peace.